Okay, let's get started. So just FYI, I'm recording this. Someone requested that I do, so we put it up on YouTube. But just for formality, my name is Maggie O'Brien. I am the Emergency Management Planner at the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. And I want to thank everyone so much for taking the time to be here tonight and being flexible with the change in venue twice. Good old Vermont weather. But today I've asked Nancy and Danica from RADART to speak to us today about sheltering for pets during incidents or weather events. I think this is a good dovetail to the Red Cross course that we had last month, where we talked about sheltering, and pets were also in that conversation as well. And with blimp season right around the corner, this might be a good opportunity to think about if you have any local animal shelters or something to put in your LEMP contacts, or just finding a way to include them in your plans in general. So with that, I will be presenting. I'll share the screen and present the slides, but Nancy and Danica will do the talking, and they'll let me know when to change the slide. So with that, let's get started.
Okay, so I'm going to start off. My name is Danica Stein. I'm the president of RADART, and just before Nancy gets into the PowerPoint, I wanted to talk just a little bit about what RADART is. As you can see on the screen, RADART stands for Rutland Area Disaster Animal Response Team. We serve all of the towns and cities in Rutland County. Our mission is to provide the community with an effective and efficient emergency management operation for animals that protects life and assists in the post-disaster recovery phase. We are a registered nonprofit where we have I forget what the letters are, but we are a registered nonprofit. We were established in 1992 after Hurricane Andrew. In practical terms, what we do is we partner with the Red Cross, we partner with the Rutland County Humane Society. We are the ones to call on when there are animals involved in any kind of disaster. For example, if there's an extreme cold event and the shelter is perhaps opened, a warming shelter, for example, and people arrive with their pets, of course, because we absolutely do not want people to leave their pets behind for any reason whatsoever. If it's not a safe situation for people, it's not safe for their pets. So when you, as firefighters, as police officers, as whatever response capacity you're fulfilling, dealing with people who are perhaps displaced and have their animals with them, we are the organization that handles the animal end of that. I'm just going to read a little snippet from our brochure. We are volunteers assisting animals, their owners, and caretakers. The devastation brought on by Hurricanes Rita and Katrina in 2005 have taught us the importance of having safe, organized shelter and transportation available for pets in the event of a disaster. It is our goal to assist in disasters by coordinating the evacuation and transportation of pets, providing safe shelters, and establishing a system by which to track and reunite pets with their owners. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nancy, and at some point in the presentation, she is going to touch on how exactly we are activated, how you would request our services.
Thank you, Danica. Next slide.
Okay, one moment. For some reason, it's not letting me advance. Oh, there we go. All right, perfect. And really quick, before I give it back to Nancy, if you're not speaking, please mute your mic so that we have less feedback. Please and thanks.
First of all, why do you think you need to include animals in your sheltering plans? Next slide. Number one, Vermont has the largest percentage of pet ownership per capita in the country. We have more pets even though we're a small state, we have more pets per capita. An interesting study that was done after Hurricane Katrina is they asked people why they did not evacuate during Katrina, and 44% of these people said they were not willing to leave their pets behind as the reason why they did not leave their homes. As well, 70% of dog owners and 63% of cat owners said they would risk their lives to save their pets. So these people are going to put others in harm's way as well as themselves, just to make sure that they can, bring their pets with them. Next slide. What happens is they may not evacuate, they may delay being evacuating, they may attempt to return to unsafe areas, or they may choose to not go to a shelter and live on the streets if they have to, in order to have their pets with them. Next slide. And the impact of not planning for pets and having those pet owners do what I previously explained is that it increases the chances of injury or disease to residents and responders. First responders need more intense relief efforts because it requires more first responders to monitor areas that are unsafe so that they can keep pet owners from returning to those areas. As well as for the pet owners, there's extreme anxiety and stress, even depression, because they know their animals were not, with them and that they're in harm's way. And the last thing that you want to have done is have an animal perish and cause a media nightmare, because newspaper people and TV people love those kind of stories. Next. Okay, so how do you request our assistance? If the state EOC is activated, then you send your request through the EOC, and they will ask the Department of, or the Agency of Agriculture representative to okay RADART being activated. The reason that we do this is so that RADART has liability insurance. If the state EOC is not activated, and this is a smaller event, but it's beyond your capabilities, then you would directly contact the Agency of Agriculture during business hours. It's 802-828-2421, and outside of business hours, you would call the watch officer at 802-347-0488. Next slide. So sheltering companion animals. Next slide. There are basically two types of animal shelters, and three different ways to do this. First is a pet-friendly shelter, and secondly is standalone shelters. Pet-friendly shelters are either co-located either in the same building or nearby the people shelter, or cohabitation shelters have cropped up in the country where the people actually are bedded down or are with their animals in the same space. Standalone shelter speaks for itself. Next. Okay. Pet-friendly shelters are people and pets under one roof, or like I said, nearby. Co-located shelters are probably preferred because there are some people who do have significant allergies to pet dander or are afraid of animals. But as I said, there have been positive outcomes of cohabitation shelters. In pet-friendly shelters, the owners care for their animals so that they take care of all their needs. So there isn't a lot of staff needed to help with the animals or oversee. And in this case, you can have pre-trained volunteers can be the primary staff. And basically what they will do is that they will supervise the owners caring for their animals. The chain of command would be prearranged and through either the organizing agency or the group. And like I said, the staff primarily supervises the owners. Next slide. This is an example of a pet-friendly shelter in a school. This was done in Florida. They placed the shelter in the hallway, a separate hallway from the people shelter, which I believe was in the gym. Next slide. What they did is they lined the whole hallway with plastic. Next slide. Added a rubber runner so that people had good footing and weren't going to trip over the plastic. Next. And then started placing kennels in on the sides of the hallway for people's pets. Next slide. Each pet would have on intake all the information that would be needing of who belongs to the pet. Usually a picture is taken of the owner with the pet so that there's not a problem if you're trying to reunite the owner and the pet. But all the important information like how to feed the animal, if there's any particular medical problems, is there any medications, etc. Next. This just shows one of the owners with her animal, and they had full access to come visit with their animals whenever they wanted to. Next. They had a separate area that was cordoned off for the owners to walk their pets and provided, poop bags so that cleanup was able to be done efficiently. Next. And when the thing was all over, you break down the kennels, get them out of there. You start pulling the plastic off the walls. You roll it up. Next slide. Next slide. And once you take away the plastic, the hallway is as pristine as it was when you started. So these are pictures of a cohabitation shelter where the animals and the pets are together. Interesting thing that the head of the state disaster animal response team in Louisiana mentioned in a recent webinar was that they had a cohabitation shelter actually during Hurricane Katrina. And when she went into this shelter, if you went to a co-located shelter or a standalone shelter, it's usually pretty noisy with the dogs barking and et cetera. But when she went into this cohabitated shelter, she said it was totally silent because the dogs were not barking, wondering where their owners were, and their owners were near them. Next. Okay, standalone shelters are in a separate building. The owners do not care for their own pets. You can have owned animals in these shelters, stray animals. You may be including animals from our local humane society, or another, from vet clinics if they were not able to keep their animals there, doggy daycares, boarding facilities. The problem with standalone shelters is that there's unknown staffing requirements, and that's because it depends on how many animals are there. It requires much more staff because this staff takes care of all the needs of the animals. There's a high dependence not only for trained volunteers, but also you'll get what we call emergent volunteers, which are people who just want to come in and help, who are inexperienced, and that inexperience can lead to higher incidence of dog bites. Next. This is just one picture of a standalone shelter. Next. Another picture of a standalone shelter, and you can see probably by the t-shirts that these people have on, as these are probably the trained volunteers from a DART team. Next. Anybody have any questions? One of the things that we can provide before questions, I guess, would be that not only can we provide staff, but we have the resources to provide food, veterinary help, medications, crates, blankets, and that's one reason why you should have our number. So does anybody have any specific questions? If nobody has any specific questions, and if you decide later that you can think of a question, that you can get a hold of Donica at that number that just went off the screen.
I have a question for you too.
Go ahead, Madison.
So if
Okay.
someone has, say, bigger pets that they're concerned about, like horses, or if they have more exotic pets, like, say, snakes or some kind of reptile, does that change anything?
Well, Nancy's not going to be taking care of the snakes. But
Yes, I don't do snake.
Our members have experience with everything from farm animals to rabbits and reptiles and snakes. I'm going to say that we probably among us have the expertise, or we have the resources. We have people we can call. We have specialists, snake people or what have you to call. We have a large animal specialist. We don't, obviously that would take some serious planning if we were to be sheltering large animals. So it's not something we can just pull out of our hat at a moment's notice. But to answer your question, we have people on the team, or we have resources that we can contact that can probably deal with almost any animal that somebody would have.
And
Okay,
when it comes
excellent.
to large animals or farm animals, we have found that farmers take care of their own. And so they'll reach out to each other. And if somebody has, an extra barn or whatever, they'll, they work with each other. But we do have the resources that we can contact for any large animals.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense that they would communicate with their network to make sure that their animals are taken care of. So I do have a couple of hands raised, so I will go down the list. First up is Bill. Go ahead.
Hi there. Sorry about that. I typed very slowly. Could you throw that last slide back up? I didn't get the complete contact numbers, and my memory is not all that good.
Yes, I can certainly do that, and I'll leave it up so that other people can copy it too if they want.
Great. Thank you.
All right, and Jan, go ahead.
Nancy, you've come to Chittenden before and done a presentation when we were planning for pet sheltering at our local shelter at Barstow School. And if I remember correctly, you gave us some great resources of items that would be helpful for us to have on hand if we needed to set up a shelter before you actually could get there. I remember the big roll of plastic, the size of that, some of those things. I'm assuming you still have that, and is that something you could share with Maggie to send out to the rest of the group?
I don't I don't know whether I have it or not, but I can certainly type one up and send it through her to Maggie in an email, and she can distribute it.
I know it was helpful.
But basically, what you need is crates. The plastic, is it necessary? No. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but it certainly makes cleanup a heck of a lot easier. But you need crates, you need food, you need a water source, you need cleaning supplies, and you need a way to log in the people that bring in their pets so that you can keep track of who belongs to whom. And that's probably the bare minimum that we need to get started.
I remember you told us collars and leashes because some dogs are going to probably arrive without a collar on.
That could be, yes. The easiest thing to do in that respect is you can go to either a pet store or much cheaper online and get slip leashes.
Okay.
So that you're not having, and slip leashes are, like $1 a piece or something. You do realize that we've been activated, I think, about 3 times. Is that right, Donica? But anyhow, and we've had very few people bring their pets.
Sorry, I was
shelters that we've opened up at, because even during Irene, we had an open shelter and we had direct communication with the Red Cross shelter, and we did have the one road that you could get from our shelter to the Red Cross shelter. And that was, you know, and our shelter happened to be Wonderland Pet Lodge because we couldn't get to our regular backup shelter. And I think we only had about maybe 10 dogs and maybe 1 or 2 cats. And that was a regional shelter. You have to remember that the pictures in Florida, you know, all these people, they have disasters all the time. And these people have to go to regional shelters versus each town's shelter.
Where would your regional shelter be located?
It depends where the Red Cross shelter would be.
Okay, so you're near them.
What you try to do is make it near them so that people can basically walk to that area and take care of their pets if you're co-sheltering. I did in Louisiana, they actually have an MOU, I think, with the bus system, so that when they have a co-located shelter, they have a bus that will bus owners in 2 or 3 times a day to take care of their pets if it's not within walking distance. And that's certainly something that we're going to look into.
Okay. So I would like to loop this back around to binary blizzard, that exercise that I've talked about so much and will continue to talk everyone's ear off about until October 2024. But as part of our binary blizzard build-up series, my mind is turning over what would happen in the event of a long-term power outage. Let's say that we have a really bad blizzard or something like the Christmas storm and power's out for several days. In that case, how does RADART repair? How does RADART prepare, and what can they do to help owners during that time?
Number one, if you're talking about the binary blizzard, you know, drill, I think that initially people, if they need shelter because of all the ice on the road, are going to have to go locally because they're not going to be able to everybody go driving into Rutland to a major Red Cross shelter. Of course, you know, you're talking about, I think you told us that it was like a week or more of an outage before they could get electricity back up and running. And so then you would have the time to prepare for the regional co-sheltering.
Right, that makes sense. I guess what I'm thinking of is a big topic of interest lately has been getting our hands on generators, and how do we have power at local shelters or EOCs last beyond 48 hours, because that's about as much fuel as a generator can hold. So we're thinking about human needs in this case, but I also wonder if people thinking about animal needs and what they need in terms of food, water, and comfort, perhaps warmth, also, how we can make sure that those needs are taken care of as well.
Yes, it's like, I know that Wonderland has their own generator, so, but, there are ways that just, depending on where your shelter is going to be located, there are some, one of our shelters that we did was in the hospital, right off of where the Red Cross shelter was in the Leahy building. Okay. And so in that case, we would have access to an emergency generator because it's the hospital. It would be, it would be the same as with the people's shelter. We would have to see what we could do about bringing in shelters. Animals are a little more hardy than we are for the most part. And snuggling in a whole bunch of blankets can keep animals warm, so that when it comes to food, if you can get, we would contact or try to receive food and water via local resources like pet shops, grocery stores, Walmart, whatever. If it's a prolonged event, we can have dog food and cat food shipped in, because the major pet food companies regularly in these really big disasters in the South, in the West, they bring in truckloads of food. It gets ridiculous how much food that is brought in. There's always too much food. And
Yeah,
too many things,
I was going to add to that when people hear about a disaster that involves animals, that's basically what most people are going to send is food, to the point where sometimes there is more than you absolutely need, and it can get out of control. RADART doesn't keep doesn't keep pet food on hand, but obviously if we know something's coming down the pike, we can prepare ahead of time. During the pandemic, we did some food distribution to local food shelves and also to individuals who were in need. And we were able to, I believe we purchased some cat litter. We had some random, cat and dog food, but Rutland County Humane Society was able to give us some food to distribute. So I'm feeling like, getting our hands on food isn't going to be the biggest problem.
No, I don't think it will be either, because, at Wonderland, there's always stacks of dog food, and there's extra cat food there that they would be glad to share, because they buy it. Dog kennels buy it for over a month in advance. So yeah, food is not an issue. That's pretty easy, because the Humane Society always has extra food. They get a lot of donations, and every once in a while they call us up and ask us to distribute dog food to the food shelves for them.
Interesting. I never considered that they would have a surplus, but I guess that makes sense. Bill, I saw your hand was up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was kind of imagining, because the city of Rutland now, with the loss of the Diamond Run Mall, I mean, we're primarily looking and focusing on the high school, and I'm kind of imagining, I mean, I would kind of cringe to see the plastic strung along the hallways for the fire load and everything, but I'm thinking, we've got possible access with the auto shop and garage facilities at the high school to also be able to house them there. But in all honesty, I've never really considered talking to the school department about that. Water's always the easiest thing. And of course, Rutland Vet Clinic's kind of right up the road, and Eastwood Animal Clinic's close too. So I can kind of imagine that, at least initially, we would probably, much like you were saying, have more than enough food. It's the cohabitation might be a little bit of an issue. I know we've had some evacuees. We had a fire recently, for instance, and no one was willing to take the animals because of them being pretty much infested. And the state placed them in the Quality Inn. They actually paid for a room to house the dogs so they would have a safe place to go. My first call after I found out about that was to our animal control officer, because nobody should have an animal in that condition. It was disgusting, to be honest with you. But I'm just thinking you certainly bring up some interesting things, that something I had never really considered much. So, my sister works at Rutland Vet and often talks about it, but we never really expanded our plan out to kind of cover that. So this is good information.
Yes, and we need, we need RAMC to help us connect with the school, because that's the regional shelter, from what I understand, Red Cross shelter.
Yes, it is.
And
Yep.
Come up with a plan, because when I have personally gone out and tried to, like I talked to Clarendon Elementary School about possibly being one of our places that we could shelter animals, and just going in on basically my own didn't make a whole lot of headway. But we need some might behind us, because people don't know about us, even though we do a lot of community outreach.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I'm in the process of reconfirming all my contacts for our local LEMP, and we have a new facilities manager that takes care of the school. So I'll bring the question up to him, and I'll reach back out to you guys to let you know. He seems to be much more accommodating than past administration management, and maybe if nothing else, we can prepare their garage space. It would be literally a walk across the hall from where we're going to be housing people, for them to go back and visit their animals.
Thank you.
That would be great.
All right, are there any other questions, comments, anything that people want to bring up before we wrap up here? All right, it doesn't seem like it. So with that, I suppose I will let you all go. Thank you so much for joining us tonight again. It was a pleasure to have you, Nancy and Danica. And I'll probably follow up with you two about how that goes with the regional shelter, because I'm curious to see where it goes, and if we could work up a plan and have that as like a base, as like an example for our towns or for other regions even, that would be a good thing. I think that would give you guys a lot of headway, like you were saying. So yeah, I'll definitely put that on my to-do list. But again, thank you so much for coming tonight, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you. Very nice job.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Nice call on canceling
Thank
the
you.
in-person. The roads are getting terrible out there, so be careful if you're going out.